Unless, of course, you tune into the Winchesters and watch stream episode 3, because that was a time. I don't want to look at burlap sacks ever again.
New fear unlocked. I love this episode though, which I know we were kind of lukewarm on episode 2. But there were so many moments in this episode that I really, 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 really loved.
So should we start with the John and Mary of it all, or should we stay in the horror part of it and then come back to John and Mary?
Let's end with John and Mary, because I have a lot to say.
Okay.
Well, this episode, funnily enough, we were just talking about it, reminded me of the Ragdoll episode of The Flash. Very, very creepy, very kind of body horror, very focused on, is it a demon? I don't know. Very, very much focused on that. And it also, I say this fondly, it reminded me of some of Supernatural's best episodes, because it made you want to look away, but unable to look away. And I feel like if it accomplished that, it nailed that. And first, again, if I didn't make it clear, the monster was terrifying.
The hands coming out of that bag the first time that you see them. Now, when that baby turned around and she was like, Bernice, and I was like, honey, you don't know where that bag has been. Does that look like a bag that you owned? Why are we sticking our hands in it?
Oh, it was I feel like a lot of the shows that we watch lately have been going into their version of the Upside Down.
Oh yeah.
And this was really, really scary, because the stakes were so high. If they didn't get out of that bag, they were staying in the bag, and that's not the bag you want to be in.
And even if you because you had to, what did they say, if you destroy the creature but they're not out of the bag, then they're destroyed too. It's like his little pocket world goes away, and that's the end of their existence.
I love how Mary was so, she has no other option. She's always going to be brave. She's always going to be like, I'm going to deal with this now, and then you guys figure it out. That's always her vibe, and that's not me. Can't relate. So I love watching it, and I commend her. And Meg was so good too.
She was.
She's so committed to it, because I feel like you really get Mary, just that she's so headstrong from her. And I know a lot of people say, is that bravery or is it stupidity running in without a fully formed plan? But I think it was bravery in this case, because
Michael, are you quoting Nancy Drew?
I am not. I don't know what you're talking about.
But we'll get to that one in a couple minutes.
We will. Foreshadowing on my part. But John did not trust himself. John is still struggling with whether he is cut out for the hunter lifestyle. And yet Mary threw him right in at the deep end with a situation where he had to be the one to figure it out. Of course, not to take away from Lata, who was the MVP of this episode. But John had to do a lot of thinking on his feet and come up with ideas. And then he was the one who thought about communicating with her on the walkie-talkie. He really came through when he had to. And I feel like it was Mary's kind of headstrong, I'm going to rush in and save the day, that forced him to do that. And again, there's a second layer of that conversation, which comes back to their whole relationship, which we'll talk about later. But I just feel like, again, for being such a villain of the week episode, huge character moments for both of them.
It was, and I think she's someone she's a force of nature anyway, and she was going to run headlong into danger. But also, specifically, this is about kids, and not just kids who she doesn't know. These are kids she takes care of. She knows them. There's a lot of stakes for her in this, and so because compared to them, compared to the children, they're grown. She's thinking about these kids stuck in this sack with this monster. And so she wants to be able to help them. She doesn't matter at that point in her mind. They do. I thought that was a lovely display of who she is as a character, how fiercely protective she is. And especially, I know we're supposed to get on to John and Mary later, but I do have to say one thing about when they were in, it's Carrie, the little girl's name is Carrie, right? Carrie's room. I felt for Mary when she said there was no room for her to dream.
My goodness.
Could only be a hunter.
I think that was so powerful for such an early on scene. I know they had another one later on, but that one stayed with me. And I mean, I think that was kind of the thing we needed to think about when all this horror stuff was going on in the background. And And I love that the room channels so much emotion, because that was where the source of the monster originated from in this case. And it brought so much back, because like, I'm sure Mary wasn't that familiar with childhood bedrooms or whatever when she was brought into this hunter's lifestyle. And again, I know I'll get into it. I'm getting pulled into this conversation, but
let's just get into the John and Mary.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're here.
But he had such a like life longing for his father, looking for his father because he loved his father, because of the life they lived before he knew everything. Whereas Mary never really had that. She's very much searching for her father now, but she never had that life where she could have been something else, where when her dad came home from the hunting, he was someone else. He was something else. He was a family man. She was just part of the business right to begin with, whereas John didn't have that. And I think that's such a beautiful juxtaposition between the two of them. And it's kind of pulling them closer together, because he was the one who made her confront that in the end. And she did in the end, and it came through. But yeah, just again, I find it hard to move past that scene because it came so early in the episode. And I think that was just such a wonderful scene.
And it's so early in the series too. That was something that I was thinking about when John was jumping ahead to like the climax, when John was saying to Lotta, I can't lose her. I was like, okay, we're getting there quick. Like for a second, well, obviously it tore my heart out, and I'm still thinking about it. Like I haven't stopped thinking about the single tear. But I was like, is this too soon for him to have these stakes? We know he's like head over heels in love with her, even if neither of them can communicate that yet. I don't think they've realized, but that connection is there. But I was like, is this too soon? And then I was like, no, I don't care. I want to see it. So let's get to it. And I'm sure as the series goes on, and hopefully there's a very long run in this future, those stakes will only grow the deeper their connection gets and the more they are put in danger. Like I have faith that the storytelling can outlast this one scene, but I think it was a beautiful moment to show just how deep their connection is already, and how much he understands her, and how much, like, even if he understands her, but he doesn't understand why their connection is so strong. And but all he knows is like, this can't end right now. Like she needs to come back.
I think for me it was too early until we got the scene at the end with him and Betty when she gives him the ring back. And I'm like, John is someone who wants partnership. And he falls easily because of that.
Yeah, and he goes quick. He follows his heart. At least this John. Like I hope everybody knows, like Sabrina and I don't have the knowledge of like older John, so we're going with what's in the material here. So this John is very much like, I'm in love, I'm all in, based on him proposing to Betty as whatever. That's what I took away from that.
I did too. I think it is because of how sort of Betty wants to be a friend, but also you could tell she had been uncomfortable with how fast he had been moving, and he agrees that she made the right decision not to say yes. But it is interesting that I wonder if some of this has to do with being raised by a single mom who got left by his dad, wanting to have partnership with someone, wanting to be able to work with someone. And in John's mind, Mary's the key to all of that. And they're both giving each other things that they need. I love that he gives her space, has her give her own self space to dream, to envision a life outside of a hunter. And I love how visually the hat that she's wearing, that was her dad's, you can tell that he's her hero. She does not want to disappoint Samuel, and leaving hunting would disappoint Samuel, which is why she could not let go of it at first. And I think one of the things that the first half of this season seems to be doing is allowing these kids to find their own paths outside of what their parents want for them.
Yeah, and it's so layered as well, because Mary clearly wants that life outside of hunting, but at the same time, she's afraid of disappointing her dad, or she doesn't want. I don't know if she's fully accepted the idea that there could be a life afterwards. But what really makes the story interesting is that I think it's John that's helping her see that, and I do think she's very much connected to him yet, even though she doesn't realize it yet. but he is so excitable about hunting and wants to be the best hunter in the world and learn to impress his father. So it's an interesting conflict, because the very person who's making her realize that there is a life after hunting is also the very person who wants to do it for the rest of his life. So you know what I mean? Like it's all the dynamics here as far as hunting goes is so like deep. But also, I agree. I was wondering, or is it too early for us to get this connected? But then they went and did the typical thing by introducing a new obstacle into the mix right at the end, which is this man she met at the movie theater.
Oh my God.
I don't
forgot
trust
about
him.
that.
No,
I
and
don't trust him.
it broke me a little bit, because you saw how like puppy dog John was like, oh, let's go to the movies together at the start. And then she went not only on her own, but then met someone else there. And I'm like, oh, this is going to break him. Even if he's not aware of how connected he is to her yet, he will be when he finds out that she went with someone else. And I don't think this is too important to just be he's never going to show up again. I assume this character is going to have something of a role going forward. And it'll definitely spice things up. I feel like the iconic John and Mary dynamic that we were seeing right out of the gate might end up taking a back seat for a little while, as this obstacle, whoever he may be, and no doubt there's more to him than that, plays a role in the next few episodes, if he's in the next few episodes. But yeah, it's very exciting, because they shocked us by going there so quickly, and now they've pulled back. So where do we go from here?
Is he connected to I don't know what the character's name is. Bridget Reagan's
Oh,
villain that
Rockin
was-
Roxy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
He
wonder.
may be. It just is very strange. I mean, how it's framed, how he just pops up at the theater, and he's going to go see the exact same movie that she's going to go see, while
And
one
she
of
was
the
so
creatures is going to
vulnerable
go
in that
get them.
moment.
She
Mm.
was.
She was opening herself up to being like, I'm gonna take the night off. And he just slides in and she's like, oh, fun. And I'm like, Mary.
That's what John opened that door, though. Why isn't John here?
Yeah. I was like, okay, fair enough. Look at him getting rid of the big burlap sack and burning it. Good on you, John. But like, couldn't you have done that and went to the movie theater with her? It was your idea after all. Yeah, but I wonder, it has to be tied to more than that. Of course, it was a sweet moment if you weren't shipping John and Mary. It was a sweet moment that she went and met someone outside the theater, and it could lead to more. But like with the type of show this is, and you know what the end game is, that ain't gonna happen. There has to be more layers to this story. And I do wonder if it's down to Rockin Roxy. And can I just say, we went from wannabe Poison Ivy last week to real Poison Ivy this week. So great to see Bridget back on screen. And whatever, I assume she's the leader of the Akrita that they're talking about, because they said it inhabited a woman's body. And Rockin Roxy is now starting to spread demonic music over the airwaves. So I assume that's who she is. And those creatures that come around with her, there's such a great atmosphere around that character, and this is only the first time you've seen her face. I really can't wait to see what kind of role she plays going forward.
Oh, she always slays a villain.
Oh, without a
She
doubt.
does, and she looked different too. They gave her like a fringe,
Yeah.
and she looked really cool. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna love to hate you. Like you're gonna be like a great villain." But I think this episode had everything. It has cuteness, it has softness, it has a bit of mystery, because you have Lotta lying about her parents being dead, because apparently her mom is alive. So that's interesting. And then we have Ada torturing the bonsai demon tree with Carlos watching. Like, I love that he had like a qualm, like he was like, wait, but you told him he was gonna be free. It was interesting that Carlos was like, but you weren't honest. And Ada was like, he's a demon. He's going in the tree.
I was on Ada's side. I was like, girl, you do it.
And then she's like, she was cutting the bonsai, but now she's like ripping branches off. I was like, can the demon feel that? What are you doing, Ada?
Oh, there's a dark side to Ada, and I can't wait to see it explored more. And we might just need it, considering how like terrifying the Akrita are going to be. And I feel like they're very much giving Ada her own arcs right now, and it's cool that they got Carlos in on it. But I would like, as the show goes on, to see how she kind of interacts with all the characters, because they've created this whole like Scooby Gang dynamic already, and it doesn't feel like she's really part of it. So I feel like maybe is she going to be their secret weapon going forward? I can't wait to see more of her and not isolated from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I think she's going to chafe under Mary's leadership, though, because there's a split-second scene where she was annoyed when Mary gave her yet another directive.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. I mean, this episode had everything, even had emotional manipulation by giving us a slightly fair, well, no, He's pretty feral, a feral John, but he's like a crying one. So it's going to
God,
be interesting if he starts fighting over.
Melted my heart. I'm a John Winchester, Drake Rogers stan. We've known this since before the premiere. But this episode just tore my heart out. I loved it so much. Yeah, there's just the looks between John and Mary, Drake and Meg. It's like I'm lapping it up, eating it with a spoon, gobbling it up. I love it. I love seeing the breadth of who he is. Like he was an adorable, awkward, just puppy around Betty because he was like, I don't want Mary to see this. But of course Mary clocks it because she's our Nancy. She's always filing things away, but I don't think she cares that much, or like she didn't put that much stock into it. She was just like, something's going on, but you handle it, it's fine. But I don't know, I just love how much they trust each other so much.
Yeah,
like she trusted him to find her.
Yeah,
you guys, that was, they were wrong for that. They were right for it, but I was like, how are you going to do that to me?
It's those big things, and it's the small things too. It's like the way that he calls her his friend. There's something deeper behind the way that he says friend, and that's down to Drake's delivery. But I'm just like, you say friend the same way you would say girlfriend, and I really enjoy that about John. I know Mary sees it. I do wonder if the new guy, if he's not a part of the Akrita, whether or not he's a path to a normal life, and that's what they're gonna do, like juxtapose relationships with. She has this really strong connection with John in the field, and they're getting really close, and then I don't even know that man's name, but like she movie theater guy, she they have a connection too, and it's normal, and he doesn't know anything about her monster hunting life. And I'm just like, it's gonna be John obviously, but this road to Mary and John is going to be very interesting.
They came for us with the content this week, and they attacked us, and we loved every last minute of it. What a comeback.